Most people walk past sweet potatoes in the grocery store without realizing they're passing by one of the most neurologically supportive, metabolically intelligent foods available to us. You see, sweet potatoes are far more than just a healthy carb. When prepared and consumed correctly, they function like a nutrient-dense protocol, one that supports the very foundation of your cognitive, hormonal, digestive, and immune systems. This isn't hype, this is rooted in what's been shown through nutritional neuroscience, clinical studies, and practical metabolic optimization. Let's start with the basics. Sweet potatoes are rich in beta-carotene, which the body converts into vitamin A. This isn't just good for vision vitamin. It plays a vital role in maintaining the health of the gut lining, supporting immune function, and influencing gene expression. But here's where things get especially interesting from a brain health perspective. Beta-carotene is a potent antioxidant. It helps neutralize free radicals in the brain, the very oxidative stress molecules that are directly linked to faster cognitive decline, fatigue, and even depressive symptoms. But beta-carotene is just the beginning. Sweet potatoes contain a specific type of fiber known as resistant starch. When consumed in the right form, especially after cooking and cooling, this starch resists digestion in the small intestine and becomes food for your beneficial gut bacteria in the large intestine. That's key because those microbes convert resistant starch into short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, which is one of the most powerful anti-inflammatory compounds produced in the human body. Butyrate has been shown to repair gut lining integrity, support neuroplasticity, and regulate mood via the gut-brain axis. And then there's potassium. Most people think of bananas when they think potassium, but sweet potatoes have them beat. A medium sweet potato can have up to 15% of your daily potassium needs, and that matters for your nervous system. Potassium is essential for proper electrical signaling in the brain and muscles. If you want to have better mental clarity, more stable energy throughout the day, and even improved sleep quality, getting adequate potassium is non-negotiable. It helps regulate fluid balance, lowers blood pressure, and offsets the high sodium diets many people unknowingly live on. Another critical compound inside sweet potatoes is vitamin C. Now, we usually think of vitamin C as an immune booster, and it is, but it's also required for the synthesis of dopamine and norepinephrine. These are the very neurotransmitters responsible for motivation, drive, alertness, and resilience. If your brain's biochemistry feels off, if you're struggling with staying focused or lifting out of a mental fog, it may not be your willpower that's lacking. It might be micronutrient depletion. Something as simple as a nutrient-rich food like a sweet potato, strategically consumed, can begin to shift your neurochemistry in a meaningful way. And here's something that most people miss. The type of carbohydrate that sweet potatoes provide is slow-releasing. This means they don't spike your blood sugar like many processed carbs do. Instead, they offer a slow, steady stream of glucose, your brain's primary fuel source, without the crash. That stable blood sugar has downstream effects on your cortisol rhythm, your insulin sensitivity, and even your ability to fall and stay asleep at night. You're not just eating to feel full, you're eating to stay balanced, alert, and emotionally grounded. Let's not forget the role of anthocyanins, especially in purple sweet potatoes. These compounds have been shown to reduce inflammation and oxidative stress in the hippocampus, the part of your brain that's critical for learning and memory. When people talk about brain fog, what they're often describing is a dysregulated hippocampus, underpowered, inflamed, undernourished. The right food, eaten the right way, can begin to restore that balance. The point is this: sweet potatoes, when respected as a protocol rather than a side dish, have the power to recalibrate your system, not with gimmicks, not with hacks, but with precision nutrition that's been under our noses all along. The protocol doesn't begin in a lab, it begins on your plate. Most people are walking around dealing with symptoms they've normalized, things like low energy, poor focus, digestive issues, constant stress, or mood swings, and they assume that's just the cost of modern life. But in reality, many of these are signals. Signals that your body is out of balance and that somewhere deep in your system, something is misfiring. What's powerful is that some of the most common hidden health problems can be addressed by simply introducing the right food in the right way, and sweet potatoes are one of the most effective tools for that. When I say hidden health problems, I'm referring to those conditions that don't always show up on standard blood work, but degrade your quality of life slowly and steadily. Insulin resistance is a perfect example. You might not be diabetic, but if you crash after meals or get irritable when you're hungry, your body is already having difficulty managing glucose. Sweet potatoes, when prepared correctly, can actually improve insulin sensitivity because of their low glycemic index and high fiber content. They provide a clean, burning fuel without triggering the hormonal chaos caused by refined carbs. Another one is chronic fatigue. I'm not talking about being tired after a long day. I'm talking about waking up exhausted, relying on caffeine to function, and crashing mid-afternoon. Often, this is the result of poor mitochondrial function and dysregulated cortisol rhythms. Sweet potatoes contain complex carbohydrates that feed your mitochondria without overstimulating the nervous system. That gives you stable energy and supports cortisol recovery, especially when consumed at the right time of day, like in your evening meal. Leaky gut is another silent disruptor. It leads to brain fog, skin issues, inflammation, and even mood instability. Sweet potatoes, rich in resistant starch and antioxidants, help restore the integrity of the gut lining. That's not just about digestion. It's about mental clarity, immunity, and even reducing autoimmunity risk. A healthier gut means your brain receives cleaner signals and your immune system calms down. Then there's mood instability, irritability, sadness, low motivation. These aren't always psychological issues. They're often biological. Your brain depends on key nutrients, vitamin C, magnesium, potassium, B6, all found in sweet potatoes, to synthesize neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin. Without those inputs, your system can't regulate mood properly. It's not your personality that's off, it's your biochemistry that's undernourished. Let's talk about inflammation. Systemic inflammation is linked to almost every chronic condition we fear: heart disease, Alzheimer's, cancer, arthritis. Sweet potatoes contain anti-inflammatory compounds like anthocyanins and beta-carotene that actively combat inflammation at the cellular level. This isn't vague, it's measurable in biomarkers like CRP and IL-6, which tend to improve when anti-inflammatory whole foods are consistently introduced. Then we have blood pressure, which often creeps up silently. Potassium. Rich foods like sweet potatoes help offset sodium levels and improve vascular function. This alone reduces risk for stroke and heart issues, and improves circulation, brain oxygenation, and sleep. Digestive distress is another one. Many people live with bloating, irregularity, or IBS-like symptoms and treat it with elimination diets or supplements. But one of the simplest solutions is restoring prebiotic diversity to the gut. That's exactly what the resistant starch in sweet potatoes does. It feeds beneficial bacteria that lower inflammation and support overall gut health. Now consider the role of sweet potatoes in immune function. Because of their vitamin A, C, and copper content, they help regulate immune responses without overstimulation. That's crucial if you're someone who gets sick often or feels run down after stress. These nutrients act like micronutrient switches that enhance the immune system's ability to respond with precision, not panic. Even sleep quality can be influenced. Consuming slowed, digesting carbs like sweet potatoes at night supports serotonin and melatonin production, promoting deeper sleep. That means better recovery, hormone balance, and brain function the next day. So when we talk about 12 hidden problems, insulin resistance, fatigue, leaky gut, brain fog, mood instability, high cortisol, inflammation, high blood pressure, poor digestion, sleep issues, weak immunity, and nutrient deficiencies. This isn't about treating isolated symptoms. It's about using food as a protocol to rewire and realign the systems that regulate those symptoms. And sometimes the most powerful medicine isn't in a pill or a Labbits in a properly cooked sweet potato. Most people eat sweet potatoes thinking they're doing something healthy, and on the surface, it seems like they are. But what they don't realize is that the way they're preparing and consuming them can completely reverse the benefits we just talked about. It's not just about what you eat, it's about how you eat it, and sweet potatoes are a perfect example of that. If you're eating them the wrong way, they can spike your blood sugar, increase inflammation, and work against your system rather than support it. Let's start with one of the most common mistakes, frying. Whether it's sweet potato fries or deep, fried chunks tossed in oil, this cooking method destroys many of the micronutrients that make sweet potatoes so powerful. Beta-carotene is heat sensitive and height. Temperature frying oxidizes the oil, turning it into a pro-inflammatory compound. You're taking a naturally anti-inflammatory food and essentially converting it into something that creates more oxidative stress in the body. That's the opposite of what your brain, your gut, and your metabolic system need. Then there's the issue of overcooking. When sweet potatoes are baked or roasted at excessively high temperatures, the starches break down too quickly into simple sugars. This causes a glycemic spike, not unlike eating white bread or candy, and that triggers a sharp insulin response. You might feel a burst of energy, but it's followed by a crash that affects your mental clarity, mood, and even sleep quality later that night. The whole goal is to create stable energy and hormonal balance, and that's not possible when your glucose levels are constantly swinging. Another mistake people make is turning sweet potatoes into a dessert. Adding sugar, syrup, marshmallows, or even just a lot of butter completely changes how your body responds to the meal. It shifts the food from being nutrient-dense to calorie-dense, and it disrupts the balance between the fiber, starch, and micronutrients. When you load on extra fat and sugar, you're not fueling your system, you're overwhelming it. That's when you start to see bloating, sluggishness, or brain fog after a meal that was supposed to energize you. Even the timing of when you eat sweet potatoes matters. Eating them first thing in the morning, for example, can be a mistake if you're someone who already struggles with glucose regulation or cortisol imbalance. Morning is when your cortisol levels are naturally high, and spiking your blood sugar early in the day can disrupt that rhythm. A better strategy, especially for people who want better sleep, improved serotonin in production, and more stable nighttime blood sugar, is to consume sweet potatoes with your last major meal of the day, paired with lean protein and healthy fats. When we treat sweet potatoes like a tool, something we intentionally use to shift our biology, we stop eating by habit and start eating with purpose. The key is low and slow cooking methods like steaming or baking at lower temperatures, cooling them after cooking to enhance resistant starch, and combining them with foods that stabilize absorption. That's when you unlock the real benefits without the hidden metabolic damage. Eating the right food the wrong way is still the wrong signal to your system. If you want to turn sweet potatoes into a true metabolic and neurological protocol, it comes down to 3 variables: how you cook them, when you eat them, and what you pair them with. Most people focus on food in isolation, just calories, macros, or taste. But the real transformation happens when you start looking at food as a signal. Sweet potatoes, when used strategically, send very specific signals to your brain, your gut, and your hormonal system. And that's why the protocol works. Let's start with how you cook them. The most effective method is low and slow. Steaming or baking at lower temperatures around 350 degrees F or below helps preserve key nutrients like beta, carotene, and vitamin C, while also maintaining the structural integrity of the resistant starch. When sweet potatoes are prepared this way and then allowed to cool, either partially or fully, that resistant starch becomes more bioavailable. That's when you get the benefits to your gut microbiome, your insulin sensitivity, and even your immune regulation. What you're doing is enhancing the prebiotic effect, which improves the diversity and function of the beneficial bacteria in your gut that affects everything from mood to inflammation levels. Now, timing is a critical piece of this. Most people don't realize that your body's glucose metabolism, your cortisol rhythm, and your neurotransmitter synthesis are all influenced by the time of day you eat certain foods. Eating sweet potatoes in the evening can help regulate blood sugar through the night, assist with serotonin production, and even support the conversion of serotonin to melatonin, which is essential for deep, restorative sleep. That's a key shift, because instead of relying on sleep aids or stimulants, you're giving your brain the raw materials it needs to regulate itself. This becomes especially valuable if you're someone who struggles with sleep latency, stress recovery, or even mood swings in the evening. And then there's pairing. On their own, sweet potatoes are powerful, but when you combine them with the right foods, you amplify their effect. Pairing them with a high-quality lean protein like salmon, eggs, or even a plant-based option provides the amino acids necessary for neurotransmitter synthesis. Add a healthy fat source like avocado, olive oil, or a few crushed walnuts, and you support fat-soluble vitamin in absorption, further stabilize blood glucose, and slow digestion to extend satiety. That combination not only optimizes your nutrient uptake, it helps signal fullness, reduce post-meal cravings, and prevent the crash that comes from isolated carbohydrate intake. This is the foundation of the protocol. You're not just eating a healthy food, you're engineering a physiological state, you're helping your brain operate with more clarity, you're training your body to manage energy more efficiently, you're feeding your gut the substrate it needs to produce anti-inflammatory compounds. And you're doing all of that with one simple shift in how you approach a single food. The right food, cooked the right way, timed precisely, and paired intentionally, that's how you turn a meal into a message. When we talk about food and the brain, most people focus on things like caffeine, omega-3s, or supplements. But one of the most overlooked systems in brain health is the gut-brain axis, the direct communication pathway between your gastrointestinal system and your central nervous system. What's happening in your gut isn't just about digestion. It's shaping your mood, your mental clarity, your stress response, and even your motivation. And one of the most powerful ways to support that system is by consistently feeding it the right kind of fuel. Sweet potatoes do exactly that. What makes sweet potatoes special is their resistant starch content. When prepared properly, cooked and then cooled, they contain starches that aren't digested in the small intestine. Instead, they move into the colon, where they become food for beneficial gut bacteria like bifidobacteria and lactobacillus. As these microbes break down the starch, they produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate. Butyrate is more than just a byproduct. It's a key regulator of inflammation, gut lining integrity, and brain health. When the gut barrier is strong, fewer inflammatory compounds leak into the bloodstream. That means lower systemic inflammation, fewer immune overreactions, and clearer, calmer communication between the gut and the brain. You begin to experience fewer energy crashes, more emotional stability, and sharper mental focus. If you've ever felt anxious or foggy after a heavy meal, that's your gut-brain axis struggling to process the food signal. But when you eat something like a sweet potato, especially as part of a structured protocol, you're actually reinforcing that connection instead of disrupting it. This is also where serotonin comes into play. About 90% of your body's serotonin is produced in the gut. If your microbiome is out of balance or your gut lining is inflamed, that production slows down and you start to feel the effects in your mood, your sleep, and your overall sense of resilience. Resistant starch from sweet potatoes helps restore that environment, which supports natural serotonin in output without needing external stimulants or mood enhancers. So when you're eating a sweet potato, you're not just feeding yourself. You're feeding trillions of microscopic allies that directly impact how your brain performs and how your body feels. You're building a more resilient nervous system by nourishing the system that informs it. That's how food becomes a neurological intervention. If you're someone who trains regularly, whether you're an athlete, a fitness enthusiast, or just someone focused on maintaining physical health and cognitive performance, sweet potatoes should be part of your nutritional strategy. The reason isn't just their carbohydrate content, it's the way they interact with the nervous system, the muscular system, and the brain's ability to adapt and recover. When you eat sweet potatoes strategically, you're not just refueling, you're rebuilding. Sweet potatoes contain complex carbohydrates that replenish muscle glycogen without the sharp insulin spike that comes from refined carbs. This steady glucose release is critical for sustained energy, especially post-workout when your muscles are primed to absorb nutrients. But it's not just about recovery, it's also about resilience. The potassium content in sweet potatoes helps regulate fluid balance, muscle contraction, and even nerve signaling. That matters not only for physical performance but for cognitive sharpness, because the same electrical signaling that fires in muscle cells happens in neurons. What often goes unnoticed is how crucial this food is for neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new neural connections. After physical activity, your brain enters a heightened state of plasticity. That's the ideal time to supply it with nutrients that stabilize blood sugar, reduce inflammation, and support neurotransmitter production. Sweet potatoes do all three. Their high levels of vitamin B6 help produce dopamine and serotonin, essential for focus and motivation. The antioxidants they carry, like beta, carotene, and anthocyanins, reduce oxidative stress that can accumulate from both physical and mental strain. Athletes and high performers often rely on external supplements or stimulants to get an edge. But many overlook how something as accessible and natural as a sweet potato can give them exactly what they're chasing: enhanced recovery, better brain performance, and improved mood regulation. It's not a quick fix or a one-off solution. It's a sustainable way to support the biological systems that high performers depend on every single day. Whether you're lifting weights, running, solving complex problems, or pushing through a long day of creative output, your brain and body need consistent, clean fuel. Sweet potatoes, when used as part of a larger nutritional protocol, deliver exactly that. They don't just help you perform better, they help you adapt better, and that's what long-term transformation depends on. The goal isn't just to power through life, it's to recover, evolve, and build a stronger system from the inside out. So when you step back and look at everything, how sweet potatoes impact your brain, your gut, your hormones, your recovery, your focus, and even your sleep, you start to realize this isn't just a food, it's a protocol. It's a simple, powerful tool that, when used intentionally, can help recalibrate systems in your body that may have been out of sync for years. You don't need complex hacks or expensive interventions. You need consistency, precision, and the right fuel. Sweet potatoes aren't the magic. They're the message, and when you eat them the right way at the right time and for the right reasons, your body listens. So the choice is yours. Keep eating for habit or start eating for change.